You're listening to the Nutrition Experts Podcast, featuring guests who take the scientific talk about food and break it down for practical use. You've heard the phrase, "You are what you eat." Come find out what that really means. Experience conversations with experts in the field of nutrition and understand the power of food for our health, well-being, and beyond. Now, here's your host, registered dietitian and nutritionist, Mathea Ford.
Hi there, it's Mathea. Welcome back to the Nutrition Experts Podcast. The podcast featuring nutrition experts who are leading the way with food starts today, right now, with our next guest. It's great to have Sharon Holand on the show today. Sharon, welcome to Nutrition Experts. I'm excited to have you on the show and share your expertise with my tribe.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I've been so looking forward to talking about our gut, and I appreciate being on the show with you.
I agree. I'm excited to talk about our gut because it kind of just works for most of the time, so we don't even think about it. But I'd like you to tell my listeners a little more about you and what you do.
Sure. So I'm a certified functional nutritionist, and basically I look at the way our bodies function. I do a lot of specific testing with gut and hormones, really to get to the root of what's going on with our most common health complaints, because we go through the day and we're tired and we're stressed and we have IBS or we have aches and pains, and we chalk it up to just getting older. And then we think it's normal. We think that, oh, well, this is just the way I should feel. And it's not. It's just what we've gotten used to. So through my testing and questionnaires and working with my clients, I can cut through all of that and help them find their own balance and function so that they can feel better and ground themselves with food so that they can pursue what their passions are, what their purpose is, and live a better, healthier life.
And who doesn't want to live a better, healthier life, right?
Absolutely.
So let's start with your gut. What are some signs that things are not right with your diet or your physiology that your gut can tell you?
Besides the typical gas or constipation, or just that bloated feeling or acid reflux, it can be the fact that we have aches and pains, that our joints are hurting us, or that we get headaches, or that we have dry skin. These things that, again, we think are benign are symptoms and are signs that our gut's saying, wake up, I'm trying to throw a little pebble at you to pay attention. The challenge is that because these are common symptoms, it's so hard for it to be diagnosed as something, because some people then think, oh, it's chronic fatigue or it's fibromyalgia, and it's a gray area. But those are really some of the major things that you start thinking, I've got to look at my gut. What is going on in my gut, where over 70% of our immune system lies? So those are some of the common ones.
So those are symptoms, for example. What kind of conditions would you say that you deal with a lot?
A lot of people who come to me, and because, it's like I'm starting to work with people in their 20s even, is that they're just tired. People who come to me are tired. They've gone to the doctor and they're not getting, nothing's showing up. So they're just overwhelmed. They're sick and tired of feeling sick and tired, and there's no diagnosis. So a lot of times I would say half my clients come to me with no particular diagnosis, except that they feel instinctively something's going on and I don't know what it is and I can't get the answers. Then on the other end are people who are being diagnosed with autoimmune disease, like Hashimoto's or Crohn's, which is what my son has, or even just type 2 diabetes, where they don't understand, I'm eating so healthy, I'm exercising, what's going on? Why am I being diagnosed with type 2 diabetes or an autoimmune disease when I'm doing everything right? I'm reading everything, I'm listening to everything. And they throw their hands up and they're just fed up. So it kind of goes both ways of a diagnosis or just feeling sick and tired of being sick and tired.
I can empathize with that, having been a mom of young children. Absolutely. How does your work with the gut help that? Let's take being tired, for example, or lack of energy. How do they work to improve that by using their gut?
When I start with somebody, it starts with a whole intake of everything. I'm very thorough in looking at all aspects of life because it's not just about the food. You know, you and I were talking beforehand about the stresses in our lives and how there's so many factors, and we have to really understand to connect all the pieces. So I start with that because I don't immediately go into testing because I want to get a sense of where somebody is. And it's simple things of just tell me what your day is like. Tell me what what do you do for a living? What's your family situation? And honing in on how are you sleeping? Are you drinking enough water? What are some things that we can look at? Because sometimes somebody does eat healthy, but their healthy is still eating whole grain bread where they might have a sensitivity. So I'll say, maybe you want to swap that out and just have really more root vegetables, or have make something with almond flour in it. I'm looking for simple steps before I get into the testing. And as you and I were also talking beforehand, it's about what are you being thankful for? It's looking at, okay, foods that you're eating. Are you chewing your food? Because we're such gulpers. We're in a rush all the time, right? And if you're gulping, your body's stressed, it's not able to digest properly. And just by slowing that process down allows your body to assimilate the nutrients. And by slowing down, you naturally start losing weight because your brain and your stomach start communicating, I'm full. So you eat less. So it's simple things like that. And then what are we thankful for? It's so easy in our negative society to be annoyed and stressed and everything. You turn on the news and something bad all the time, or something at work, or something with your kid. So it's about pausing, breathing, and bookending your day of what can you be thankful for? Wake up in the morning, be thankful that you're alive, be thankful you have a roof over your head, that you have a spouse who loves you, whatever it is. Look at that appreciation. And then at the end of the day, no matter how bad your day is, what are 3 good things that happened? And we can always find 3 good things, always. And especially if you have kids or dogs, just the love that you get from them. So that's another way of helping people to tune in to ways to calm their gut, because they're calming their bodies. Because even if you're eating well, but you're stressed out, your system is going to be all haywire, because it's, again, not just about the food. It's about all aspects of your life, and slowing down and breathing.
How is your gut responding to stress? I guess what's the connection there? You're talking about you're tired and you're stressed, and that's related to your gut, but I'm not sure I understand what the connection is.
Over 80%, over 70% of our immune system lies in our gut. And our gut's considered our second brain because it's connected to our brain by the vagus nerve. And it's like the superconductor highway. So what you're feeding your body, what you're feeding your gut, sends nutrients out to your organs through your bloodstream and up to your brain. But with that, and with the being tired or the stress, there's also these like free radicals. Like, think like a Pac-Man game. You have Pac-Man who's eating up all these yellow blobs to try to win, and those little yellow blobs are just free radicals that are being created in our bodies. There's actually a gentleman that I listened to at a conference I went to recently, Tom O'Brien. He wrote a book called The Autoimmune Fix, and I love his metaphor because our gut microbiome has like trillions of bacteria, good, bad, and ugly. And it's considered, like, you can compare it to the armed forces. So you have the armed forces that has all these different, the Marines, the Navy, the Army, and all these factions. And then you can compare that to different antibodies that are in our gut. So there's like IgE response, IgG response, and their job is to protect our bodies. So when it sees something coming in, it automatically shoots a bullet at it. But when it does that, there's collateral damage. And that collateral damage creates a disruption in the gut bacteria. So if our microbiome is disrupted, and we're eating foods and we're not able to assimilate them properly, or our body doesn't recognize it and starts attacking it, it then affects our brain because it's not sending the proper transmitters to our brain to give it the energy it needs so that you're not tired and that you have the energy to do what you need to do.
So I heard Dr. Robert Martingale talk about the gut microbiome and basically how it can change over days and time, how it does help you to absorb nutrients, how it actually performs some of the digestive function, obviously producing, most dietitians know you get a lot of your vitamin K from the gut microbiome. So what you're doing is kind of helping people to improve their gut microbiome, so then therefore their whole body and immune system improves? Or am I confused?
So I start with the simple ways that they can start taking care of themselves, right? So it's chewing, it's slowing down, it's adding in, some healthier foods. We talk about what it is they're eating. And then people generally will go and opt for a gut test. And that's where I really can go in and see. It's a stool test that's sent directly from the lab to my client. And that's where they do a stool test. They send it in. I get the results. I actually had somebody ask, well, do you actually look at the poop? I'm like, no, I don't look at it, but I get the results and it'll show me simple things like, do you have H. pylori, or do you have parasites, or do you have candida? But then it also shows me where there's opportunistic bacteria, this dysbiosis. Actually, a good way to look at it is you're boiling water for pasta. You put the pasta in, and if it's at the right temperature, then it just will boil properly. But if it's too high, a foam is created, right? And then it overflows, right? I don't know if that's ever happened to you, but then all of a sudden, right, it's everywhere. So what I'm doing is I'm looking at those test results and correlating your symptoms and seeing what's going on with the different bacteria, seeing if there's any autoimmune triggers, any leaky gut. There are markers for that to show any inflammation, because generally what I see is that overflowing of that pasta pot. We don't necessarily know is happening except for some of those symptoms that I mentioned. And there are dozens of symptoms, but those are the major ones. So by looking at these results, then I can really target the gut and start by supporting it with supplements that'll help to calm the inflammation down so that you can start healing, but then also go in and get rid of these opportunistic bacteria or parasites or whatever the person's individual results show. And once that happens, that foam disappears, the clearing, it's like the fog is gone, and now you can see where you're going. Because when you have that fog there, it's hard then to be able to really pay attention, to really think clearly, because your gut, the army is, they're on a field day. They're just like, oh yeah, let's go hit this area. Let's go affect, my brain. Let's go challenge this organ. And by calming it all down and getting rid of that fog, then the vagus nerve, then the gut and the brain can start communicating better. And so many times people don't even realize that they have anxiety that will then practically disappear because they've healed their gut. Or I even had a client who for 20 years had the sniffles. She just didn't even realize that was a problem until it was gone. and then she's like, oh my God, wow, I didn't think I'd ever have normal, that I would never have to blow my nose again.
Yeah, she thought she just had constant allergies, huh?
Yes, exactly. So did that answer your question of how I actually go in and then work with and I'm able to calm the gut down?
Yeah, I was actually going to ask you about what is the testing that you do. So you kind of explained that.
Because that's where so much of everything happens. And the thing is, this didn't happen overnight. You and I spoke about this before as well. Over time, the stress, the products we put on our skin, the air we breathe, the products we clean with, the food, antibiotics that we may have taken when we were kids. There's so many factors that build up in our body that over time our immune system just gets tired. It just throws up the white flag, and it's like, there's too much collateral damage here. I can't keep fighting. And that, after years of all of this work of our body trying to adapt, that's when the white flag goes up, and it's like your body's like, I give up. And that's when we start feeling the symptoms. And that's when we're like, oh my God, I don't understand, but I've been taking care of myself. What happened? Because it didn't happen overnight. It took years sometimes for things to happen. So my goal is always giving people hope of like, it's great. Now we know. Now we can do something about it. And the more armed we are with the knowledge, it's just like, I always say to people, like, imagine the possibilities, because now you have so many choices. Because it's not about living in a cave. It's about, what can I do to improve my life on a regular basis, even if it's small steps, whatever I can do to make me feel better. It's such a gift for us to have.
Yes, we don't value our health nearly enough until we have problems with it. Absolutely. What are some ways we can work just as individuals to improve the balance between our diet and our health?
Don't try to do everything at once. I think part of the reason why diets fail is that we want to be perfect at doing it. We try to follow something to a T. And as you and I know, there's 60,000 diet books out there. We're trying to do it all. We follow a system that worked for one person and then, works for a few weeks, and then, it stops working because we're trying to do too much, and we're not listening to our bodies. And that's the first thing that I say to somebody is, you do have to keep some sort of a journal. Listen to your body and start with one thing. So somebody, for instance, who really eats healthy, then, all right, look at what products are you putting on your skin. Maybe there's a way to use a healthier product, go to a health food store, or use something that doesn't have as many ingredients, or a company you trust. Another way is products that you're cleaning with. It's like, so that's with somebody who might say, yeah, let me start with products since I eat healthy. For somebody who doesn't know if they're eating healthy, my big thing is look at your plate. At each meal, your plate should be filled with lots of colors. All right, breakfast maybe not so, because many people are like, I'm not eating a salad for breakfast. But look at your plate at lunch and dinner. Fill it up with as many colors of the rainbow, dark green leafy vegetables and peppers or tomatoes or zucchini or broccoli, cauliflower, whatever it is. And of course, I say that generally because people can have sensitivities to vegetables, but I'm just talking in general. And then half your plate should be that way. Then look at the other half of your plate and divide it into a good healthy protein, which a good serving should fit about the palm of your hand, or look like a deck of cards. You don't need a lot of protein. And then a really good healthy fat. And that could be a half an avocado. It could be nuts and seeds. It could be olive oil. It could be coconut oil. It could be grass-fed butter. It's whatever healthy fat that you like. And that could be in a dressing that you're drizzling over your salad. And then a slow-burning carb, which could be a root vegetable. This whole idea of grains and breads, is it best to minimize that as much as possible? Absolutely, because we have so many sensitivities to it. But I say it to people, if you love your bread, then and you don't want to change that, start by adding in the vegetables. Start by looking at the rest of your plate. Start at one place and focus on that for a week. And then once you have that under your belt, add something else. And it's just about the baby steps. Oh, and again, this is a generalization, because obviously if somebody has something specific, or if they're celiac or whatever it is, then you really have to be a little more extreme. But I'm just talking in general, right? You want to just start somewhere.
You mentioned autoimmune a couple times. Are there ways that we can mitigate or change autoimmune reactions? And how do we recognize what those are?
Autoimmune disease, it's actually interesting how the food supply chain has changed, right, in the last 50 years, and how prevalent autoimmune disease is becoming. There are over 80 autoimmune diseases, and there are about 50 million people or that have autoimmune disease. And they're diagnosed because some of these same symptoms that I'm talking about can be some of those triggers that start that autoimmune process. And it's really the achy joints and pain, the joints that you're feeling, and the foggy brain. So being aware that those could possibly, and I say possibly because everybody's different. I don't want people to listen to this thinking, oh my God, I have an autoimmune disease, because that's the last thing, but again, it's that awareness of, oh, wow. So if I'm feeling this, let me pay attention. What am I doing? And it's looking at, like I said, the food, the products we're using, the air. Well, you can't control the air you're breathing, but what kind of water am I drinking? Can I use a filtered water? And the top, and I know this also, right? The top things are the lactose and the wheat. Because of the way the wheat's being processed, there are now so many markers for different responses that people can react to because of the whole manufacturing process. And then the glyphosate that's used in some of these, being sprayed in the field, these pesticides. So really, again, going to the root of eating whole foods and asking yourself, if I can't read what these ingredients are, what is it doing to my body? And if I really love having breads, and by the way, when somebody has a craving for breads, that's usually what they're sensitive to. And that's kind of a catch-22, because then it's like, oh, really? Because your body's craving it. So your gut, right? These little guys in your gut are saying, ha, 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 we're going to trick you. We're going to tell you that you really want it, but it's going to feed us. We're feeding off of it. So I say to people, well, then try to upgrade. If you're eating regular whole grain bread, switch to a sprouted grain, switch to an Ezekiel, switch to something that's a higher level and see how you feel. And then slowly swap it out. So if you're eating pasta, maybe do a chickpea pasta or a black bean pasta, and again, some people may have sensitivities to legumes, but it's starting where you're at and picking a place and swapping out. And dairy, nobody really needs dairy. We think that we need calcium. We've been conditioned by these ads, and that's another thing. We're eating advertising. We've been conditioned by these ads to think, I have to get my calcium. I've got to get it from dairy. But dairy's acidic. And then we're eating this dairy. It's acidic to our bodies, and now our body's trying to neutralize it. And what's it doing? It's actually leaching calcium from our bones to neutralize it. Then we're being diagnosed with osteoporosis, and we can't understand why. So you get more calcium from broccoli, from dark green leafy vegetables. Increase your vegetable intake. And if you don't like the taste of it, throw it into a smoothie. Make yourself a protein shake and put your vegetables in there. So those are some of the ways.
If people don't, they want to test this or think about how to change a few things just to see if it helps, what sort of ways would you say that the listeners could use this in their day-to-day life that they could change?
Writing down everything that and it takes time to just sit and breathe and be with yourself, and writing down what you feel in your body. So I've had clients who think that it's normal to just have a bowel movement once a week because that's all they know. And I've had clients who have diarrhea every day and they think it's normal because that's all they know. It's writing down all these little mundane things for yourself and then asking yourself, is this normal? And if it's like, why do I believe this? It's starting to question your body and its reaction. I'm burping all the time. Some societies and some countries think that that's a sign of a good meal. But is that really normal? And once you're asking yourself that, then you can say, okay, now let me see, what am I eating? Am I reacting this way an hour after I eat? So it's paying attention an hour after you eat to, am I belching? Am I farting? And do I have gas? Do I have diarrhea, constipation? Am I sneezing and sniffles? Do I have a scratchy throat? Do I have dry skin? Do I feel itchy? And just writing it down and notice a pattern. So writing it down, look at it an hour later, look at it 2 hours later. If it's the evening, when you wake up in the morning, see how you feel. You and I talked about before we got on this call how I ate ice cream and I knew I was going to wake up feeling groggy because I'm aware now. But when I wasn't aware, I didn't understand why I was so tired in the morning until I put the pieces together of, wow, you know what? When I eat ice cream at night, I wake up tired. When I don't, I'm fine. So once you do that, then you can start saying, okay, I'm not sure what food it is I ate. How do I isolate it? And you pick one food at a time to remove, to isolate, and you play around with it every few days like you would with a new baby when you introduce baby food to them. You want to see how they respond to a food, so you isolate it. And then if somebody feels like this is just too much work, I don't think I can do this myself, then I say, okay, then let's do the testing. Let's talk. Let's work together. And once you learn after working with me and seeing your results, then you'll have the tools to do it yourself, and you'll feel so much more empowered to know what it is and how you can then not only help yourself, but help the family.
Okay, so a little bit different topic. I try to ask this to all my guests. So what is your favorite food?
Oh my God.
Everybody says it's the hardest question.
Food. It is, because I have a couple of favorite foods, but I have to pick one.
No, you can tell me a couple. That's fine.
Honestly, I really love a great slice of thin crust pizza with some goat cheese, pine nuts, and spinach. That's like my favorite.
That sounds delicious.
And that's the thing, is that I will indulge once in a while because my body can heal itself in those moments if I'm taking care of myself. My other favorite food is ice cream. I have such a weakness. But not the fake kind, like the real ice cream. If I'm going to have it, I'm going to have it. And again, I'm just very mindful of not having too much of it because I know it creates inflammation in my body. But those are definitely my top two. And you would think that it would be something healthy, but it's not.
I go by the philosophy that all foods can fit. So like you said, a little bit here, a little bit there.
Exactly. And that's also why when I work with my clients, they see that I'm real. It's like I make mistakes. We all make mistakes. It's life. It's not even a mistake. It's just part of our process. And we have to be who we are. And we have to know that it's a lifestyle. It's a journey. It's never ending, right?
Well, and sometimes doing those little things like eating a little ice cream and recognizing again, oh yeah, that makes me feel this certain way, just reinforces that, okay, yes, I need to remember to continue to treat myself right by eating the right foods. So it always serves as a good reminder, but yeah.
Exactly. I do have to say guac is definitely up there also. And I eat an avocado every single day. So something healthy for the listeners.
I love guacamole too. I think I'm the only one in my family that does those. So whenever we go out to dinner at like a Mexican restaurant and guacamole comes with the fajitas or whatever, they're always like, here, you can have it. I'm like, yay. Because we don't have a lot of avocados in Oklahoma. So.
Oh, that's so funny. Yeah, more for you, right? The more the merrier.
Well, Sharon, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. It was a pleasure to have you on the show. I know my listeners learned a lot about how food affects our health. And so if listeners want to connect with you, what's the best way to do that?
Definitely go to my website, SharonHoland.com. Sign up for my newsletter and you'll get a free guide, Break Free from Cravings, Diets, and Deprivation. And I have a Saturday YouTube video that I put up every Saturday mornings with Sharon, where I give quick tips. Best way. And then from there, I offer complimentary consultations, which you can find everything on my website.
Oh, that sounds great. Okay. Well, guys, this has been another great episode of the Nutrition Experts Podcast, the podcast that is all about learning more so you can do more with nutrition in your life.
You've just listened to an episode of the Nutrition Experts Podcast. Be sure to get more information about this week's episode at www.nutritionexpertspodcast.com. Tune in next time for another great conversation with a nutrition expert and expand your personal knowledge in the field of nutrition. one conversation at a time.